Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we bring you day 427 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. As always, with former advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel Olexiy Arestovych, and Russian opposition politician, lawyer, and well-known blogger Mark Feygin. Special thanks go to our supporters. Bill, thank you for continuing support. We do appreciate your input. You guys are the ones helping us to stay on air. Thanks. And without further ado, here's day 427. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Wednesday, April 26th. Time is 1 minute past 10 in Kiev, same time in Moscow. We're doing our usual stream, day 427 with Olexiy. Good evening, Olexiy. Yes, good evening, everybody. Big ask to all of those 557,000 that are watching us. Please share links to that stream, click the like button. If you're watching us from Russia, send it via Messenger to your friends or those who need to see that. We already got 20,000 of you to click the like button. This is awesome, but continue doing that. And if you have not subscribed yet, please click subscribe to Feygin Live. We're 8,000 shy of 2,100,000, and also to the channel of Olexiy Arestovych. And if you are listening or watching that in English, to Privateer Station. Let's start with the main news. Olexiy? The conversation between Xi Jinping and Zelensky happened. It was planned to happen earlier, probably at the end of March, when Xi was going to visit Moscow, and I suspected that, of course, the phone conversation will happen at some point because it's not an issue to make a call. There are different statements, different commentary flying in the media field. Moscow is freaking out and calling that Western masters allowed Ukraine to pick up the phone. And the West said, no, we don't really react to that. And those reactions that we heard were basically saying that, yeah, sure, that's awesome. So what do you say about that? I will say that there are many people who are skeptical that the caliber of Zelensky and Xi Jinping is different, and Xi will never call, I'll never visit. It is difficult to go into details because we don't know the exact contents of their conversation, but I wouldn't be surprised that Chinese leader suggested his peace plan, and the one that he made everybody familiar with already. And Zelensky very likely answered to that, of course, but only after the last Russian soldier leaves the territory of Ukraine. And among some serious changes, Rivakon is now appointed an ambassador in China. And yeah, I apologize, but China actually appointed their ex-ambassador to Moscow as a special representative for peace regulation with Ukraine. And yeah, thank you, Mark. I was exactly going to say that. All right. Yeah, I just felt myself a little bit in a time machine because when I was involved in earlier negotiations, a negotiation process with Russia after 2014, and it kind of smells similar. I mean, it's Chinese representative, and it's just the name that sounds similar, but it does bring a lot of memories of very lengthy and very unfruitful endless negotiations. So yeah, it just reminds of one subgroup, another subgroup, several special representatives. That's fantastic, but I don't put high hopes in that. What is important, I think they did discuss that the possibility of nuclear war should be zero, and there shouldn't be a nuclear war as part of this conflict. And China essentially supports that stance, and China is not going to support arms to any of the party in the conflict. So what else can we want? That's awesome. China doesn't want nuclear war and will not supply arms to Russia. Yeah, he cannot jump into support of Russia in any format, because then what's the question of being, how can they be peacekeepers or negotiators? And it's good. It's a good overall position that I think we like. Okay, we have a bit of an innovation on our channel on Feygin Live. We have a poll happening as we go on air. Today, question is, will this conversation between China and Ukraine, between Xi Jinping and Zelensky, help to resolve the problem of war in Ukraine? And we already have it up for 7 minutes, and a bunch of you have voted. So some people were concerned if our group watching us is very specific, but it's still a cool thing to try. So I guess, Mark, to format this question, would it help for Russia, for Ukraine and China to converse with between each other? I would say probably later, after the war. After the war is done and won, then China can definitely help to build the world after, to build the relations with what remains of Russia after. So I think the value for China is that China is some sort of the participating, negotiating, or peacekeeping party. So that's definitely a benefit for China, right? Of course. Representation of any peace talks and aiding to that is great. And China can definitely help in exchanging prisoners of war. And I think Budanov mentioned that there was discussed a formula everyone for everyone, which would be fantastic. So basically exchange all the prisoners as long as the war is going. So China could aid in coming to that resolution. Also humanitarian aspects of our agriculture product exports and some refugees relocation and all that. Maybe, I think China can definitely help in that. I would support it. All right, we already have over 150,000 watching us. 52,000 click the like button. I remind those who are joining, usually it happens in spurts, and we're only 8 minutes live. Okay, so the next one, people are writing that Erdogan had a heart attack. There are no official details, but some media is already posting. He was giving an interview to a Turkish journalist when he felt bad and felt sick, and he was rushed to a hospital. He's not old, he is not young, but heart attack is not good for anyone. And I don't know if that was confirmed, if we can even rely on that information, but there is an election campaign going on in Turkey, and we will not comment in depth on that situation, but let's just suppose that if he will not be in good condition to participate in elections, how much will that affect Turkish politics? And his opponent is one of the oldest communist or socialist representative in their political field. Well, it might change their situation drastically because Turkey is a regional superpower and they have a lot of relations with both Ukraine and Russia. And Turkey essentially is the keeper of that grain deal, one of the proponents of the peaceful solution of this conflict. But Turkey under Erdogan is also pan-Turkism, pan-Osman Empirism. So it's interesting. If due to his health he will not be able to participate in politics, this will be a very drastic black swan that would have arrived to that spot of the planet and will affect some part of our story. For example, will Sweden be part of NATO? A question of American-Turkish relations, a question of Kurds, a question of Azerbaijan and Turkey, a question of Turkey and Russia relations. about waters and the gray supplies by ocean and land. So a lot of things can change if the opposition wins in Turkey, and Turkey will have to review all these interesting topics. Nothing is confirmed, but I see that people are posting that even his family was called into hospital. Yeah, that I'm seeing too, but it's not confirmed yet. Erdogan is a supporter of Ukraine, and we wish him well, but it's definitely a black swan, and it might turn into a black dragon if he leaves politics due to his health concerns. I'm not implying death, no, but just health concerns might preclude him from participating. We're not prognosticating here, we're just looking at eventualities and possibilities. These are unconfirmed messages, so don't throw stones at us. We are just looking into the preliminary data, and we're looking at what possibilities are if Erdogan, according to his health, will have to disappear from the political field for a while. I think it's important to make that note, otherwise there'll be a lot of stones thrown our way. All right, let's go to the front, see what's happening there. We have the map open. Do you know that in Kherson today, Russian occupants shot up an Italian journalist? They wounded him in shoulder. I'm looking for his name. He's got a name, right? And I understand that Ukrainian aide who was with him actually died, according to what I saw. Let me look up this news. Here's another side note to Erdogan's discussion that Kremlin actually urgently arrived to Kremlin, and I suspect that could be related to Erdogan's condition because they would be commenting on it. Is it official? Well, that's what we know. Let's put it this way. Okay, and I also see that Erdogan's representative is saying that the meeting they had planned for Thursday is postponed. So, yeah, it's not cancelled, it's postponed, but we'll see. Okay, we'll see. Perhaps you are right, Putin could be reacting to that. Okay, yeah, correspondent of La Repubblica, Karada Zunida, and his aide Bogdan Vitek were shot by Russian sniper in Kherson on the bank of Dnieper, and Ukrainian aide was killed and Italian journalist was wounded. Well, do you think it can reach them? I suspect, yeah, it could. If it's a typical sniper rifle, it could fly for 1.5 kilometers just fine. So 1.5 kilometers is not a big issue. No, it's a 50-gram bullet. That's pretty heavy. There was already an event in this war when our sniper shot somebody as far as 2 kilometers away. So that's somewhat of a milestone, right? Yeah. Nobody tells us an exact location where that happened, so it's difficult to say if it was a sniper or how that happened. And I'm seeing the comments in media that Putin actually just came to Kremlin. And I'm also getting notes from Kherson that know where that incident happened. They're saying that, yeah, where it happened, it could have been a sniper fire. Yeah, it's doable. So wait, if they're shooting up the journalists like that, they could be killing the civilians as well, right? It's dangerous. Well, oh hell yeah, they're using artillery fire on the civilians. Well, yeah, but I mean sniper. Of course, but it's obvious that they were hunting the media representatives because Western journalists do not work without bright insignia, blue bulletproof vests, helmets, insignia. You can also see the camera and specific setup. So that definitely tells the sniper what he or she is shooting at. So they knew whom they were shooting, but we know whom we're fighting with, right? All right. So speaking of the front, Kherson still artillery duels. Zaporozhye, the enemy is amping up their defenses. Vuhledar, they're trying to use some artillery, but They're not doing anything active. We are not advancing there, but we are trolling them, definitely. Traditionally, Mariinka, Avdiivka, and Bakhmut are the most difficult parts of the front. In Bakhmut, still heavy fighting. Mariinka, the fighting is also happening on the flanks and in the center, and Avdiivka as well. Commander of Special Operations, Viktor Kharenko, visited Bakhmut today. He says that he checked the condition of special forces that are fighting there. We actually have special units fighting there, and he's the commanding officer for that type of military, for that branch of military in Ukraine, the one who graduated from all the way down to the all the way top, and super professional in his field. So he made a statement that situation is difficult, but our fighters are successfully carrying out the tasks. It is difficult, but is under control. And basically, if you look at what stands behind these words, is that Russian troops are leveling quarters with artillery, and our troops somehow manage not only to hold the town, but also counterattack under fire. And these flanks that you see on the map, on the north and on the south of Bakhmut, we're showing it at 3 o'clock on the map. That's where we actually push back and do some counter-offensive operations. And it's very serious guys fighting there right now on our side, as well as on the other. So it's a very hot element, very hot section of the front line. So other segments, Kremenaya and Svatova, there is no intensive fighting as in Bakhmut, let's say. Let's put it this way. It is very wooded area, and generally we stopped their attempt to push at us there, and we're not allowing them to. They're still doing tactical actions. They send diversion intel groups, but this is just small actions, small tactical. So it's systemic fighting happening on this front, nothing too major. All right. That's all about the front line. We have about 200,000 watching us, 71,000 already clicked the like button. This is what is important. Yeah, I'm gonna leave the frame, right? We need 29,000 more likes to come back to usual at least 100,000 likes. So those who are watching us, please click that button. And do not forget to subscribe if you have not done that yet. All right, next statement. Ukraine will get Western arms for the counteroffensive in time. The leader of NATO military, General Christopher Cavoli, made a statement. Pentagon also stated that Ukraine already got about 98% of armor planned for participating in the counteroffensive. And there are a lot of statements in the same flow that basically support the same stance, that generally Ukraine is rather well prepared. Have you heard what Prigozhin said today? That was interesting. Oh yeah, it was somewhat a wild statement, right? He is making lists for execution for the traitors who are not giving enough shells. Let me quote. So Ukrainians are getting ready to start the counteroffensive in May. They'll be cutting off our flanks, and will probably be able to last maybe for another, attention, 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, I think we created a meme with our 2-3 weeks. It's always better to be at the end of the third week, I think. But if to talk about the contents of it, yeah, he sees that the end is nigh. It's creeping up slowly on soft pause at them, but we'll see how it goes when it happens. The opinions are different. Some opinions state that nothing will work, the West doesn't support, Ukraine will fail. Western military are saying that no, Ukraine military probably will just roll over everything that Russia has on the front line. Some are concerned with minefields and some of the fortifications that Russia has built already. So there are different opinions. I'm reservedly optimistic, and I expect very bright results from that operation. We'll see. So, and about the lists for execution, because I think he implies that on these lists there'll be Gerasimov, there'll be Shoigu, there'll be Russian military leadership, basically Lapins and this and the like. Do you think they will be addressing that statement that he's making? I think, Mark, they will have their hands full in the next few weeks. There'll be a lot of screams and pointing fingers at each other, but that's beyond the point. They'll be fighting for sure. We'll just have to concentrate on our successes. I suspect that he suspects that Russian command will use him to plug the holes in the front and to be thrown under the steamroll unit that is breaking through the front line at the main direction of attack. That is a very sad perspective. His Wagner might just come to an end right there. So he has serious concerns that he might be thrown to plug in the tank breakthroughs and to stop the tank offensive, and this is a really, really uncomfortable position to be in. And he cannot refuse that on the front, right? So he is confirming that according to forecast, the last rain is tomorrow, and by the first week of May, everything will get drier. Our military also, that's a kind of a side note to that, that the losses among Russian artillery are growing. What is it connected to? Mark, what is it connected to when the artillery is getting destroyed? What means do you guys use to destroy it? Right, different means, but the numbers are growing. That's what's important. That's a sign that very soon, the events will start unfolding. According to partisans in Novaya Kakhovka, one of the pro-occupant propagandists blew up on the landmine, and partisans are saying that we are limited, we cannot even operate there, or physically do not have capacity at Novaya Kakhovka, so it's probably his karma that he blew up on the Russian mine. All right. We have 216,000 watching us. 96,000 click the like button. So I remind you that we are doing a poll, interactive poll online. About 50,000 already voted for that. Will today's conversation between Xi Jinping and Zelensky help to end the war in Ukraine? For now, most people are skeptical. No was voted by 70%, and yes is supported only by 30%. Please participate if you can. We'll continue doing that, and we'll be asking different questions as we go. So please participate, and do not forget to subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station if you have not done that yet. Today, Mikhail Podolyak made a statement. I'm looking for that exact news, but he did mention that the West has the keys from this war as well. If Ukraine had nukes, then there would be no attempts to bite off its territories. And if the memorandum signed earlier by the West was also supported. So, one way or another, going to that and the conversation between Zelensky and China, should Ukraine have resisted the ask to give away nukes back in the 90s? Because there was enough pressure, there was financial pressure, there was political pressure for Ukraine to do that. Here, I found the quote. Podolyak said that the politics of the United States, together with several Western countries, is at a root cause of today's situation with the conflict. And the Western countries were among the top proponents of pushing Ukraine to relinquish nukes. And in the long run, this politics led to the big war in Europe. So the problem of this nuclear question is only the part of what Ukraine chose to be during the first 30 years of its independent state outside of Soviet Union. I think in general we behaved ourselves pretty much as food during that time. Actually, today is the birthday of Israel, and I wrote a small post about that. I'll quote some of it here, that the overall experience of Israel highlights that the more you rely upon yourself and you build up your strategy relying only upon yourself so that you can defend yourself effectively. And that actually is supported by 25th article of the United Nations, that each country should have capability to defend itself and means to do that. And then you'll find allies along the way who will join you. Because some people think Israel grew up first to be strong and then started to conduct strong armed politics of their interests and national interests. No, it is exact opposite. Israel started to defend their interests from the beginning. While Ukraine went the complete opposite way, we at the beginning were relying upon other allies to form our position. There is a joke that Moscow political leadership was replaced by Washington political leadership in the 90s, and then we destroyed and sold and disbanded the biggest military group that was left in Europe after the USSR fell apart. If you think of it, we had 2,800,000 armed soldiers and officers, 5 armies, 3 Air Force armies. All that was sold and gave away and disbanded. The older officers shared some with me back in 2013. You know how it looked like when a general goes home and he gets a call from leadership and saying that we have an order from defense minister, to shrink the numbers of our military by another 2,000 people. And he just goes back to his desk, looks at the brigade that matches the number, and just cancels that brigade. And that was a stupid kind of behavior that we exhibited then. Our behavior, that's what I refer to as behaving like food. So it was supported by people's reaction at that time. And even today, some of our population have not fully understood what are we fighting for, that what is at stake, that it's our lives and our future. And yeah, just come to think of it, back in 2014, speaking of us as a country and population, when Russia invaded, we had head of military, head of special services, head of police, citizens of Russian Federation. And the president looked very much like a Russian agent. And it's difficult to imagine more volatile and short-sighted behavior than we had in the last 30 years. But I would say, tactically, we should have kept tactical nukes, serviced them, and keep them well-maintained and ready to use. And that would have been a best guarantee against any military action, and it would be much better than any of the memorandums we signed. I believe that anything can be signed. I don't believe it will be followed with when situation comes. So if Ukraine doesn't join NATO, that's a guarantee of a new war with Russia. The only way to stop it is to join or to bring nukes back to Ukraine. Who will give you nukes? Oh, we'll figure it out. As you know, we have a lot of nuclear stations. We can run several centrifuges, and give us a year or so, we'll have some nukes. And Kremlin during this war set up several ultimatums to the world, and they also actually left several nuclear armament agreements. And the United States made a note today that they are restarting production of nuclear munitions, 80 warheads a year. This is probably a planned process to replace the old ones, but Russia now very doubtedly can do any of that. Their production of nuclear weaponry is dismantled to a large degree. It's in huge decay, and I wonder even if they will be able to restart it as an answer to anything that America does. And by the way, also, in the other news, Xi Jinping supported our grain deal. And so in this slide that Americans came out and said we're producing new nuclear warheads to replace the old ones and maintain the status quo, but can Russian Federation do that? That's a big question. So there are a lot of interesting events happening in the world, and I think we should pose a question very seriously. The only serious guarantee for Ukraine to preclude any war with Russia in the future is to become a member of NATO. And NATO already owes us, the collective West owes us. They signed the documents, they signed the memorandums about our territorial integrity, and then they allowed Russia to attack Ukraine. And they actually allowed nuclear country to attack a non-nuclear country, which is also a breaking of several international treaties of the nuclear club. The contract about non-proliferation, nuclear non-proliferation, one of the interesting articles there is that nuclear country takes responsibility upon itself to not allow any other nuclear country to attack a non-nuclear sovereign country. So this is a bad element of modern history, that Belaversky Memorandum and Minsk agreements, Minsk I, Minsk II. We are now eating a lot of shit for that, and we are paying with blood and burying our own people as a result. And I think that allows us to continue negotiations with the West with an open face and a strong stance, saying that we cannot rely on your guarantees, because we've been there already. When it comes to execution, then the answer we get is, oh, it's difficult, political situation and geopolitical issues or some other matters. So we know the value of that. And the other variant that might be considered is full refitting of Ukrainian military to make sure that we're militarily so strong that Russia would not even aspire to attack us. So let's say 250 jets in the Air Force, well equipped with NATO equipment that can reach targets further than Russian Air Force. But even that would be a second-tier guarantee, because one would need to service that. One would need to keep that military in a top shape. So, 10, 15 years from now, when Russia will be able to restart that conflict, we will need to maintain the military in that shape. So I would say that's a secondary option. All right, 240,000 joined us. I remind our viewers that we are doing a live poll about the conversation that Xi Jinping and Zelensky had today. Will it help to conclude the war in Ukraine? 30% are saying yes, 70% are saying no. 62,800 already voted. So please keep doing that. We'll be asking questions on the main topic. Every stream, maybe there'll be some sociology outlook out of that. Okay. So a statement made by Biden is that if North Korea attacked anything United States with their limited nukes, that would lead to replacement of the leadership of North Korea. And the United States is supportive of South Korea, and they recently brought a submarine there as well that was in the news today. So that whole southeastern and eastern region became a little more alive lately, and that situation needs some reacting, I guess, activity in Japan and the like. So at least in that part of the world, United States are increasing their presence in regards to their control and their overall presence. How much do you think this can affect activity of China? Because China was trying to be a source of diplomatic conversation between Sunni and Shia in the Middle East, and then is trying to involve in conversations around Ukraine and Russia in the Eastern Europe. And in the meantime, United States is growing their presence in the Pacific side. So start of that was, it was started by AUKUS by creating a sort of alliance between similar to NATO among countries with UK relations. So here's the situation. Biden is giving direct guarantees about possible conflict between North and Southern Korea. He is giving direct guarantees to Southern Korea, but they're not giving these guarantees to Ukraine. While North Korea is an ally to both documented opponents of the United States, according to NATO documents, China and Russia. And the United States is very supportive of South Korea, same in Taiwan, same as Japan. So, a question, why is the United States going to war, going to fight for their allies over in the Pacific region, but they're not doing that in the Eastern Europe? If you were members of NATO, then we could have, but otherwise, what, do you want the Third World War? Why that argumentation is not being sounded in relation to Korea? I think I can answer that question, Olexiy. I think because the threat of China, if we are engaging North Korea and China, they're not really projecting their threat towards the Atlantic parts of Europe, because NATO countries are too far. But Russia is pretty close. China will reach, China has a reach. They can reach territory of the United States, for example. Well, yeah, but Russian threat is the lasting one from the Soviet times and preliminary to Europe, and mostly to Europe than anything else. So is there a threat? There is a threat, though, right? So there is a threat, and I think that's a reason for Ukraine to pose the question in the hardest way, that why, dear allies, are you supporting Japan and South Korea so ardently, and even Taiwan, and you are not making hard political statements about protecting us as your allies? Because I will be putting this question pretty sharp. WTF, dear American allies and Europeans? Well, I think they probably expect much less aggression from Beijing, and that's why they're posing there as ardent allies of Korea and Japan. Well, yeah, but then why would they wrote China as into their military documents as the opponent? That they want to compete with China economically, maybe? No, Mark. It is very well documented that China is an expected political and military opponent of the United States, and they're viewing China as a possible foe in a military conflict. And actually, they did mention in the conversation, one of the generals in the United States said that, yes, we understand the bottlenecks of ammunitions. We're keeping in mind the Ukrainian conflict, but we should have enough munitions in case there is anything with China, any conflict with China. So no, they do consider Russia, they do consider China, they are preparing for different military scenarios, and there is a definite asymmetry in their reaction to Ukraine versus, let's say, South Korea or Japan. And that underlines to me the necessity to bring this question sharp. On our front, we have a hot war happening here, going on here, and we're being told that we hear that our allies will fight for Korea and for Taiwan and Japan, but for us, and it's only maybe Ben Hodges and saying that there'll be difficult consequences for Kremlin, and maybe Victoria Nuland and Biden mentioned, but their formulation was not hard enough, I think, because if they said differently, if they said that if Russia will continue this war, we will make sure that the political leadership is changed in Russia. Perhaps that would make them shit their pants a little and stop cutting heads off our prisoners of war and stop with their atrocities here. All right. There is another news I want to bring up today. In Russia, they started to deliver conscription notes, which now have a special red stamp at the bottom that says, attention, if you do not come to the conscription site, you will be facing certain alienation of your rights, such as driving a vehicle. And I'll remind that, yeah, it is. They prohibit people to leave the country, they prohibit them to drive vehicles, and they also do not allow them to sign contracts of sale or purchase. And as well as using some of the military services, something like Medicaid. So, looking at these news, it seems that before the large-scale conscription, they do not have enough. They are not getting enough output from their efforts to get more troops to the front. I think it came from Ukraine today that there is 300-something thousand people fighting on the front on the Russian side. Yeah, 377,000, Mark. Okay, thank you. So 377, that's depends upon how you look at it. It's could be a lot, could be a little, but definitely not enough to capture the whole Ukraine, right? But this whole story continues. Wait, I need to finish this thought. So their goals are still active, that they want to conclude that special operation and to force Ukraine to demilitarize, to not join NATO. How are you going to do that without occupation, right? Let's be blunt here. This will not happen ever. So then the task that they stated in front of themselves, they're not going to accomplish. So they need more meat, and they're trying to recruit more meat, but I'm trying to bring a question about the start of the second wave of mobilization related to counteroffensive and such. Do you think that they're just starting that mechanism? Can we expect that if counteroffensive starts in May, their active phase 2 of mobilization will also pick steam up? Mark, it never really stopped. They have enough meat, I think. I'm skeptical on this. Okay, so they're mobilized. They're thrown here to plug the holes. If we're active in the active phase of counteroffensive, we'll just steamroll over those. Even now, they have 370,000 here. Half of them are light detachments without any heavy equipment, dressed in a uniform of 1940s and carrying some very basic arms. So, yeah, they'll not be able to stop us. They cannot really saturate with what they gather so haphazardly. So, I don't think that'll play a big role. So you think the numbers will not be able to save them? No, Mark, that will not play a big role, I think. They'll try. They'll definitely try, and I congratulate, in parentheses, everybody who will be conscribed like that and will be thrown under the tracks of tanks without any proper training. This is a sad story for their life, but, what can I say? Avoid. If you're against this war, make every effort to avoid it. That's the best thing you can do. And speaking of sanctions, a group of Yermak came out with a proposition, and there were several news related to that. One of them, Americans said to Kazakhstan, and Kazakh exchange prohibited Russian and Belarus participants to carry out any deals in a foreign currency. So, on the background of that, the president of Kyrgyzstan is going to Moscow. Yeah, but that's Kyrgyzstan. Yeah, Kyrgyzstan, that's among those southern countries. I would want to send my warm hello to the president of Kyrgyzstan and remind them that they are accepting a lot of European aid, and he's contemplating going to visit the person who is under arrest order from International Criminal Court. So, President of Kyrgyzstan, you may want to reconsider that visit. And there are also a lot of evil tongues in Russia commenting that Kyrgyzstan is one of the territories that is being used for grey schemes to bring dual-use goods into Russia. So this is a very dangerous visit, I would say, especially given that there may be different things happening as a result of this visit, and I suspect that Kyrgyzstan might face a lot of adversities as a result of this visit. So, and I wouldn't want Kyrgyz people. I actually had a friend from Kyrgyzstan when I was a teen. I wouldn't want them to face all these problems. Why do you want to stay friends with this sick barrack and that old mad grandpa in Russia? You're a country with a long history. You're people who know their value, who can stand their own. You don't need that. And I want to bring back Asia in focus. I think it's another American mistake that they're valuing their positions in Asia higher than the Ukrainian war, because China can always use its pocket puppet, pocket madman Putin to spike up another conflict in Europe and then basically disperse the ability of the West to protect their Pacific allies. I would remind once again that the main task of any military is not the war so much as precluding any foes from starting that war. Poles understand that real well. They're increasing their military by a factor of 3, and they're creating the biggest military group behind Ukraine. And with all my respect to and love to Americans, I really treat them well, and any representative of the West allies. I do remember the saying by Churchill that Americans will make the right decision after having tried all the others. So I think sometimes we need to help them to make the right decision, to remind them. I'm just tired of that one-sided gameplay. Washington Post today published another story today. Unnamed representative of Azov, a provocation against our military unit, Azov, said that, of course, Ukrainian troops may consider crossing the border and capturing Russian towns along the border, same as Chechen fighters did during the first war in Chechnya. That was a difficult situation back then. War fighters in Chechnya were taking these measures not because they enjoyed it, because they had a much different and difficult situation there. So they were doing it to survive. But this is, not a good page of history. And my question is, I have a question to our allies. What the F? Why are you bringing up this angle? And why are you attacking Ukraine like that? With this provocation and fake publications. We are covering your butts here in Europe from Russian aggression and Putin's regime. And we're hearing back, oh, it's so difficult. Long-range missiles is so difficult. And these munitions and jets is also, nothing is so simple. And you cannot attack territory of Russia and you cannot do these things. So I think, it's time to pull their whiskers a little bit down, to ground them, because that rhetoric on the eve of counteroffensive is not exactly a partnerly rhetoric. It's playing in the pocket of Putin. All right. So, and to conclude that, Sadir Kaparov, we appeal to you, the president of Kyrgyzstan. Sadir, Arestovych and myself are telling you, don't go there. On the 9th of May, there is no reason to be on Red Square. You don't know. Maybe the drone or something may fall from the sky there. It's just a dangerous area to be in. Plus, the consequences, economic and political, the fallout of that visit may be a little too harsh. All right. So we've had 255,000 watching us, over 110,000 click the like button. My usual ask, please continue sharing links in your social media. Do not forget to click the like button. Thank you for supporting us, and we're concluding our question, our poll. It is concluded. We have about 80,000 people voted, and that proportion did not change. 70% think that it will not help the conversation between Zelensky and Xi Jinping, and 30% think this is helpful. We'll see. We'll see how the next poll will be, and we'll, of course, carry it out. On Saturday, Saturday we're doing an extreme raid? Yes, okay. All right. See you then, dear friends. See you on Saturday. Goodbye.